Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Dirty Boots Capital. I'm your host, Tony Lopes, and I am here with the awesome and truly great Robert Helms of the Real Estate Guys radio show. So, Robert, welcome to Dirty Boots Capital.
Hey, Tony, so good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to have a wide discussion on everything from maybe macro politics, all the craziness that's happening around us today in the world. But bring it back to the setting goals. As we get into the end of the year, we start thinking about what we accomplished in 2024, but then we also start thinking about the year ahead of us, 2025, and the goals we want to set and all the goodness that's going to come out of that. So I think this is going to be a fantastic conversation, but I also want to mention another event that's going on, the New Orleans Investment Conference that I know you are the master of ceremonies of. That's coming up shortly here in about a little over a week, November 20th to the 23rd. For the viewers, the listeners, if you're not familiar with the New Orleans Investment Conference, take a look. It's incredible. You get to hear from some of the brightest macro minds out there and financial advisors out there, everything from commodities, gold, silver, things like that, to real estate, to what's happening in just entirely the macro space. So take a look at the New Orleans Investment Conference. Robert's going to be there as well as a slew of other super smart people you want to and need to know. So take a look at that. But Robert, you are going to be hosting the upcoming goals retreat. You have this goals retreat that you've created. It's called Create Your Future Goals Retreat, and that's going to be happening in January. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that and why you created it, how long you've been hosting that. Give us a little bit of background detail.
Well, it didn't set out to be something we would do annually. I discovered pretty early in my real estate sales career that through getting clarity and setting specific goals and breaking those down into the steps necessary, that we were able to achieve tremendous success. And before I knew it, I was telling other people, and we would do these 3-hour evening classes on how to set your goals, mostly for real estate agents who were trying to do better. And lo and behold, the office did better, the company did better. And then we took a little hiatus. And when the Real Estate Guys radio show started, that became a whole different focus. And a buddy of mine that helps run the seminar with me said, we really ought to do the goals thing again. And that was just about 3 decades ago. So we've been doing it a long time. And it went from 3 hours to a day and a half to 2 days to now, as you've attended, Tony, it's about 2.5 days. And the reason is it takes time to get deep. We live our lives on a pretty superficial level most of the time. Hi, how are you? How's the kids and how's the weather? Well, in order to get deep, you have to be in an environment where that's okay, where you can play full out, when there aren't a lot of people nosing into your business. And life is just so hectic and frenetic, it's sometimes hard to find those escapes. So we set the retreat up, so it really is a retreat. You get away from the hustle and bustle of your everyday life, and you get to a place where you can go deep. And I help guide you through a whole workbook full of questions. And they're not just rhetorical questions. There's a few of those, but mostly these are detailed questions to help pull out of you your greatness.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So as you mentioned, I did attend the goals retreat. A super big fan of the retreat. I'm actually one of those folks who I'm a type A. I typically have my goals for the year and I have my actions behind them. And I went into that retreat and I'm like, felt pretty comfortable. I had my goals identified and I felt comfortable. Then after the first day, I was like, wow. I'm not sure I do have this figured out,
Right.
because one of the beautiful things that came for me personally, so personal story, what came out for me was how you map. I shouldn't even say map back, because it really starts with intentions. And what I felt coming out of it was you helped me understand my intentions much better than I originally understood them to be. It's great to identify goals and say, okay, I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to grow my business. And here's all the actions I'm going to put behind it. But truly, what is your intention at the end of the day? Like, what is that top level thing? You can say, my intention is to be healthy. Okay, and that's a great intention to have. But now let's put some goals behind it. I'm going to work out every day for 30 minutes. Well, that's a great goal. Like, okay, what are some actions? So you really helped me kind of trace back some of my goals to my intentions. The other thing for me, and I don't know if that's deliberate, is that a deliberate thing, the way you've constructed this?
Yeah, it's not only deliberate, it is absolutely necessary because just putting a goal on a piece of paper usually isn't enough to drive the motivation to achieve the action. It's easy to blow off an appointment with yourself. I'm going to exercise 4 times a week for 30 minutes until the first day comes. And I know I'm supposed to go to the gym, but I've got this really important project I'm working on, right? So we drift away. So that intentionality is critical. And without that, the Jim Rohn would say, when the why becomes clear, the how becomes obvious. Most people don't struggle with knowing what to do. That's not the epiphany they're going to get. It's really drilling down and attaching it to your soul so it matters to you. And in real estate, imagine you wanted to build a house, but you didn't have a plan or any blueprints. You just start hammering away. Well, even a guy that's built 100 houses isn't going to be very successful. We wouldn't think of building anything without a blueprint. Well, it's the same in your life. And yet, folks are like pinballs. They bounce from thing to thing to thing. They end up somewhere doing something with somebody, and they're like, I guess I'm successful. And the intentionality, I'm glad you caught on that because that's just the most critical part. Your two best friends, when it comes to living out the life that you are put here to live, are clarity and focus. You have to get crystal clear on what you want, and by the way, what you don't want, what you will allow in your life and what you won't, the price you're willing to pay, clarity. And then once you have that clarity, which is what the workshop's designed to do, now the key is to focus. Focus on those steps, those action items you brought up. And if that why is there, that's the glue that gets you out of bed in the morning. One of the big, hairy, audacious goals that I sent back in 2017, and I said it from the front of the room, is that my son and I were going to hike to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Hmm.
And my friend Ken McElroy invited me on that journey, and I took one look at Ken and went, dude, really? Like, do I look like a guy that would climb Mount Kilimanjaro? And Kenny was great. He's like, I'll get you in shape. And sure enough, by proclaiming that to the world, now it took a lot, but when my alarm went off at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm not a morning guy, the why was crystal clear. There wasn't a single day in my 5 month training with my son that I slept through it because my motivation wasn't just that picture on top of the world. My motivation was, I don't want to die on that mountain, right? I mean, I really had the positive motivation, but also the negative motivation to get my butt out of bed and on the treadmill. And so that's why the intention part is so important. You could just write down a bunch of goals, but if there's not personal meaning attached, you're likely not to fulfill them.
Yeah, if you don't have that clarity, it's difficult to really achieve that goal. The thing that you mentioned two things that I want to double back on, and that's proclaiming your goal, like outward to folks, to your family, to your friends. I'm going to go hike Kilimanjaro. It makes it that much more real. It makes you that much more committed. And then also, it holds you accountable because who wants to go back and say, I didn't achieve that goal? Nobody wants to. Nobody wants to have that feeling, right? So there's that accountability. And also people hold you accountable. If you have a goal to hike Kilimanjaro or you have a goal to work out 4 times a week, if you have a spouse, and this is something else I want to chat with you about, is going through this retreat with a spouse or with a business partner, right? To be able to proclaim these goals that you have to each other, you hold each other accountable. And now you have a friend helping you to achieve those goals, which is huge, right? You have like a workout buddy that's going to meet you at the gym at 5 a.m. every morning to help you. So, accountability, I would imagine, right? I'd love to get your perspective, but I think accountability is a pretty huge piece of going through this goals retreat.
Boy, it really is. Once you've figured out who you are and what you want to be when you grow up, and then the things that are exciting you and motivating you, and you anchor that to these activities, now life gets in the way. And so accountability is huge. And the first accountability is to yourself. I look at goals as a commitment I'm making to myself, my future self. I'm giving my future self a gift by proclaiming the goal. Now, you do have to be a little careful with proclamation. You want to make sure that you're proclaiming your goals to people that are supportive of you. There's detached people. Sometimes a great workout partner is someone that isn't really attached to the results. Like whether or not you meet your weight goal or your strength goal or your conditioning goal, yeah, they're your friend. They want you to do well, but they're not directly attached to that. Monetary goals, you go make a bunch of money, doesn't really affect them, but they want to see that happen to you. Sometimes you want that detachment. But to your point, the people that are most important in your life, those are the ones you have that daily support from. And I believe most of those folks want to see you succeed, but they don't, if you don't have clarity, they don't have any clarity about how they can help you. When you say, honey, I've really made this commitment to get in shape, and 4 days a week, I want to be up. As long as Honey knows that, Honey can support you in the activity necessary, help you celebrate the wins when they happen, get you through the difficult times that are sure to happen. So it is really important. And then I love the idea of having an accountability partner. Your example of the gym is a great one. If I say I'm going to be at the gym, well, who's going to know if I don't show up? But the minute I say,
Yep.
"Hey Tony, I'll meet you at the gym." Well, now we both hold each other accountable because you might think about not coming, but you're going to show up because hey, you're meeting me and I'm going to oh man, I'd love to sleep in, but Tony's going to be there waiting for me. I can't let Tony down. So accountability does work both ways, and it's a critical part of achieving goals. Setting goals is great, but achieving goals is what matters.
Absolutely. One of the other things that you had mentioned, and I want to double back to it because for me it was super important. We talk about clarity, clarity in our intentions, clarity in the goals that we set, but also having that clarity for me personally, I reflected on the previous year and I said, why didn't I get some of those goals done? And so then I started to think, well, I had that goal, but maybe it wasn't as important or aligned with my intentions as I originally thought. So why am I going to keep banging my head against a wall trying to achieve a goal that I'm truly not aligned with, that I'm going to emotionally, physically, mentally feel bad about that I didn't achieve that goal? Let it go. It's no longer a goal that's meant for me. So I think that was, not I think, I know that was a really important moment for me to have that reflection on the previous year to say, wait a minute. And I would encourage others to do the same. Like a lot of us have our goal sheet where we write down these are the things we want to do, and it sits by our computer on our nightstand, wherever people have it. If you go into the goals retreat, and I encourage the viewers and the listeners, take a look. We'll put the link to it in the description field of this. Take a look and come to this event because it is very impactful in a lot of different ways. It's not just let me go ahead and set my goals. No, it's much, much deeper than that. Like Robert was saying, so it's what, 2.5 days now that you run?
Yeah, so it starts on a Friday evening in the late afternoon, and the first day, people have been traveling and so forth. So we're going to do some work, but we're not going to be at it for 8 hours. And then you need a good night's sleep. And then Saturday is all day long. We start early, we have breakfast together, and then we really just focus on the various areas of our life because goals isn't just about business, isn't just about family, isn't just about health, isn't just about spirituality. It's about all those things. And so we spend a lot of time on drilling deep, asking a lot of questions. And then there's an optional session on Saturday, and it's only optional because some people just can't stand to go for 3 more hours after going for 11 hours. But most people do attend Saturday night. That's the only part of the workshop that changes every year. And I've got an exciting one this year, I think. And then on Sunday, we kind of pull all the pieces together and now make sure that you leave ready to go because you made an excellent point. If you come with an idea of what you want to accomplish, which by the way is awesome. I love when people say, I've already written my goals for the year. I'm like, bring them. Because then you can have that reality check of how much does this thing I wrote down really matter to me compared to and in context with all the other things that matter to me because life is a series of choosing what you do with every minute and every day. And when by its very nature I say I'm going to spend this hour doing this, that's to the exclusion of anything else I could do with this hour. And so time becomes the most critical resource, not money, time when it comes to fulfilling your goals. So why spend all that time, to your point, Tony, working hard on something that really doesn't matter that much to you, doesn't give you that satisfaction you're after. And that's the clarity part. People come with an idea and it's just a vague notion of what they want to accomplish because, again, they haven't done the blueprint. Then they go through the processes and they go, wow, okay, I thought it was going to be this, but in reality, it's not, it's this. It's incredible. You saw what happened to George Gammon in this last year. He just had this incredible epiphany that he shared from the front of the room. And I don't want to betray any confidences, but his life became very clear for him in that moment. And here's a busy, successful guy that probably thought he didn't need the event. In fact, I told him early on, I'm like, George, I won't be offended if you don't stay for the whole event, because just knowing him, he doesn't tend to sit still for
Yeah.
long. But he's like,
Yep.
no, nobody needs this more than me. So much so that then at Rebel Capitalist Live, he invited me to do a session on goal setting. So he found it beneficial. But it is a really good point that whatever preconceived notions you are, I love when people have already thought through it. Part of the homework you get is, hey, come to the event like ready to reflect on what happened last year. Because that is the closest thing we have to a blueprint for this year is last year's successes and failures. So if we can honestly look at last year and say, okay, there's some things that went great, and then there's some things that were wrong turns or miscalculations, and now we can address those things in this private 2.5 day working on yourself, not you stepping back and be able to work on your future instead of just plodding along. It really can benefit you a ton.
Yeah, and for folks who haven't attended the event, this is not, I don't want folks to have the wrong perception of this event. This is not a conference like you've seen typical real estate guys conferences or George Gammon's Rebel Capitalist Live conference or the New Orleans Investment Conference. This is not a conference. It's a retreat.
Right.
It's a workshop. You're going to get in there. You are going to be working on yourself. You are going to develop a roadmap for yourself. If you have goals and you're coming with those, great. You will take your goals and you will map them to an action plan so that when you come out of this 2.5 day event, you actually have something you're bringing home with you that you can now action, which for me what was huge because I have a little bit of a squirrel syndrome where I see a shiny object and I go run towards it. So having this roadmap was super important for me. And so for me, again, I want to share with the viewers and the listeners. For me, I had this goal of doing my first syndication deal, which as a result of the goals retreat, having a roadmap allowed me in 2024 to complete my first syndication deal, my first partnership with two others, where we closed on an apartment complex, 153 units right outside of
Wow.
Miami. So that was a success. And I'm not
Awesome.
sure I truly would have been successful in achieving that had I not gone through the goals retreat and understood truly what my intentions were for doing something like that, a project like that, because that's a pretty big endeavor. And so for me, again, just want to share back the outcome, the results for me, how it helped. So
Love that.
you had mentioned a couple other names, which this is a added benefit of going to the goals retreat. I'm going to call it networking, but it's so much more because we are in an absolutely crazy world right now. We just got past the election, 100% red wave coming at us. Trump, the Senate, the House. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of changes, a lot of moving parts there, and there's probably going to be a lot impacting us in our lives as well. So the networking, I think, is a huge piece of this event to chat with others and see maybe what their struggles were and how they overcame those struggles. I think folks are going to meet a lot of folks who have been to this event before, and there's going to be a lot of learning that can be had just by speaking to some of the other attendees. I know that's helped me, but from the standpoint of networking and outside the event, right? Getting coffee, having lunch, having breakfast, things like that. For me, I thought that was a pretty big part of the event as well. I got to imagine you thought the same.
The thing is, we set our goals in our own world, but then you have this opportunity to talk with other achievers. I mean, who spends 2.5 days locked in a hotel room working on their goals? Less than 3% of Americans write goals. So this whole room will be filled with achievers, people wanting to do better. So that networking is crazy great. Now, to your point, there are probably about half the people be there for the first time, and about half the people have been there for a second, fifth, 10th time. It's crazy. All the slow learners, I like to joke, but you come back because what has changed is not necessarily the event. There's some variance from year to year, but it's really the person. You come as a different person. And I love hearing the achievement stories because that's what propels me to go to this incredible amount of work to do this event every year because I hear just this astounding, amazing results people have. And because this stuff really works. But to your point, sometimes what you need is somebody else's perspective. And the networking isn't handing out business cards and talking about deals. We love that kind of networking. We go to a lot of conferences, meet a lot of people. We have trade show booths to walk up and find out what people do. It's all good. This is just different. So we try to structure the networking to the degree we can so that you're spending time talking about the things that matter. What is going on in your life? And there are so many good lessons in the room, both things that went really well and things that didn't. When someone else has been through the ringer and they can heartfelt share with you, here's what happened to me, here's where I went wrong, and man, here's the lesson I got. That can be the goal. That can be the missing piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then also, I want to double back to some of the names you already mentioned, Kenny McElroy, George Gammon. Who else is going to be at this event? Because I think that's a big piece of it too. We see a lot of folks who are doing their podcast or maybe been at a conference on stage talking about macro or investing or whatever it may be. Who else will be at this event with you that we may be able to meet and chat with?
Yeah, it's an interesting event because it's about you. It's not about me. All I do is proctor the event, if you will. But it does help to have some input from other folks. Ken McElroy, this will be his third year. The first year he came to the Goals Retreat. I invited him up Saturday night with both of his sons and my son, and we talked about conquering the mountain, what it was like to go through this whole Kilimanjaro thing and the lessons we got from the mountain, which were a lot more than just about hiking. And that was a fun thing to do. And now Ken hasn't missed it since. You know, our friend Jason Hartman will be there. Jason was blown away. It was his first time last year. This year we have a couple of first time attendees. I'm excited to announce that Mike Maloney is going to be with us, who really wrote the book on gold and silver all those years ago and started goldsilver.com. Your friend and mine, Robert Kiyosaki, has signed up to be there. Now, whether or not he shows up, we'll see. I'm not sure Robert's going to want to sit still for 2.5 days of this, but maybe he is a lifelong
Very hard
student.
to make them sit still, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
it is, but so we have a lot of folks, and really maybe some of my most exciting guests, if you will, are people that have been for 4 or 5 or 6 times. I have this one gal, we'll call her Catherine because that's her name. Catherine's been like 6 times over 20 years. So she doesn't come every year. But when she does come, boy, her just embracing of the concepts. And she comes very clear. She knows what to expect, but she comes with a checklist of things she wants to get done. It's amazing to see that. Another gal who's come probably every 5 years. And I remember talking to her last time. Her name's Nancy. And Nancy said, I do my goals at the beginning of the year with the same workbook and all that stuff, but every few years, I just need a refresher, so I come plug back in. So it's great to meet those kind of folks, and we certainly call on some people who have had success. Nobody that doesn't volunteer the information, but one of my favorite things is to learn what's happened between this year and last year. We start with something called the Reflection Reception, which is a cocktail and hors d'oeuvre reception, but it's really designed to network with everybody talking about what were their big takeaways and epiphanies and wins for 2024 in this case,
Yeah.
and where did they fall short so they can reflect on last year and be in that mind space as you go and look at the perfectly blank canvas that is 2025.
Well, this is a fantastic event. I'm having you on because I'm a huge fan of it. I have some friends who are coming to the event based on conversations we've had, and I'll be back there. I'm just a huge fan. I think there's a lot of goodness to be achieved. So if folks want to learn more about this goals retreat, where's the best place they can go to take a look at it, Robert?
Yeah, it's super easy. It's goalsretreat.com. Just go to goalsretreat.com. You'll hear about it, see some testimonials. It's a little evasive to understand. You've done a great job of pointing that out, Tony. It's not a conference. There's no booths. There's nothing for sale. It's not like that. But it is a workshop. Come prepared, ready to do work. I'm not going to make you do crazy stuff like stand on the table or walk through fire. And that stuff's awesome, but we don't do that at the Goals
Yeah.
Retreat. This is really introspective. I'm going to guide you through yourself and really try to pull out some of those things so you can recognize them and then take massive action in the new year. But if you just go to goalsretreat.com, you can learn all about the event. It's the 17th, 18th, and 19th of January in beautiful Dallas, Texas.
That's fantastic. Robert, I hope our personal stories of how you helped us motivate you to keep doing this year after year. I know doing these events, it's a lot of your time. It's just it's a lot, and we appreciate you. And we share these stories not to be braggadocious about things, but sharing stories helps motivate all of us. And
Life is not a spectator sport, as you have to get your boots dirty from time to time. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it, and I look forward to seeing you, my friend.
it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Robert. Thanks for being on Dirty Boots Capital.
Thanks, Tony.